Hello YouTube, my name is Nero and welcome to another Overwatch Hero Spotlight and Quick Tips video. I know it's been some time since my last Overwatch video, but today we're back and we're going to be covering Roadhog, a huge biker slash bodyguard from the dystopian continent of Australia. Roadhog is a tank hero and he's incredibly good at dealing damage, disrupting the enemy team, and sustaining himself on the front lines. He's a bit unusual for a tank, but we're going to be covering that later in the video. But let's start things off here with the weapon, shall we? Roadhog's weapon of choice is going to be the scrap gun. This is a shotgun that, you guessed it, shoots scrap rather than traditional shotgun shells. Given Roadhog is from Junkertown, Australia, I imagine this weapon was built out of necessity rather than preference. Like most shotguns, the damage of the scrap gun is going to be calculated via pellets. Each time you fire the scrap gun, it's going to shoot 25 pellets, and each of them is going to be doing between 2 and 9 damage depending on your range. So the closer you are, it's going to do 9 damage. If they're really far away, it's going to drop down to 2 damage, and each pellet you hit is going to do a little bit more damage to your opponent. So in the best case scenario, you're going to be really up close to your target. You're going to shoot your scrap gun, and a lot of pellets are going to hit them, all for 9 damage each. At maximum, if you hit all 25 pellets at close range without the help of headshots, the scrap gun will deal 225 damage to your target, which is a pretty big number. That will kill a lot of heroes in Overwatch. But since headshots in this game deal double damage, and by some magic you actually hit all 25 pellets to your target's head at close range, the scrap gun can deal 550 damage in a single shot. But that's not really going to happen very often given how wide the spread for the pellets actually is, but it's something that can in fact actually happen. The scrap gun does also come with an alternate fire method. A lot of weapons in Overwatch do this, and of course Roadhog's weapon is going to be no different. This allows Roadhog to be a bit more lethal at range. It basically fires a ball of scrap that's only really effective at a medium range, because how it works is you're shooting this big ball of scrap that detonates after a little bit, right? The exact range of the detonation is very difficult to measure, but I'm showing you guys gameplay of that here in this video. That's about the range at which it's going to be most powerful. If you actually can hit your target with your alt fire at that proper range, it will deal 225 damage, which is incredibly good. If you hit your target before the detonation, however, it's only going to deal 50 damage, and it's just basically going to tickle them down, and it's really a waste to use your alt fire if it's outside of the detonation range. It should also be mentioned that you can hit people at pretty long ranges with your alt fire, although the damage is pretty minuscule. Headshots do also count with alt fire, so just keep that in mind. Next up, let's cover Roadhog's claim to fame, his chain hook. The chain hook allows Roadhog to grab an enemy player and pull them towards him. The combo that a lot of people try to pull off is chain hook a target, shotgun their face once they get close, and then melee them just for good measure. This allows Roadhog to do an obscene amount of damage very quickly. The chain hook itself has a range of 21 yards, and to give you guys actual context, I'm showing you gameplay of about the max range that you can use the chain hook just for reference. Chain hook also deals 30 damage when it initially hits your target, and it only has a 6-second cooldown. With chain hook out of the way, it's time to cover the ability that makes Roadhog so ridiculously sustainable. Roadhog's Take a Breather ability allows him to breathe from a special canister and restore 300 health over 1.5 seconds. By default, Roadhog has a health pool of 600. This means he can heal half of his maximum health every 8 seconds with his Take a Breather ability. You see, Roadhog's a tank, but he's a very different tank. He doesn't tank like Reinhardt or D.Va, where he can mitigate damage via shields and barriers for not only himself but also for his teammates. Roadhog mitigates damage meant for his teammates by taking it himself. He has an incredibly large hitbox, and he's a bit of a bullet sponge. When people see Roadhog, they typically want to put a bunch of shots into him, and since he's going to be taking so much unmitigated damage, he has the ability to heal himself, and that's where Take a Breather comes in. Next up, let's take a look at Roadhog's ultimate, Whole Hog. This allows Roadhog to put a top loader on his scrap gun and just hose scrap towards his targets. Whole Hog lasts a total of 6 seconds. It can deal up to 5,000 total damage, assuming every last pellet hits, but it's incredibly hard to do that given how much recoil the scrap gun actually has. Roadhog's ultimate is not only good for dealing damage, however, because any enemy hit while his ultimate is up is also knocked back. This allows Whole Hog to be an incredibly powerful tool at disrupting enemy teams. A good example would be the all too common scenario of a team walking behind a Reinhardt as they push a payload, Roadhog can just walk up, use his ultimate, and scatter the entire team and knock them all around the area, which allows other people on your team to capitalize on all of the disruption. If you're looking to deal maximum damage, however, with Whole Hog, try to get your opponent up against a wall. Even the tankiest of tanks is going to die quickly to the onslaught of Scrap. With his basic abilities out of the way, it's time to cover some quick tips for playing Roadhog effectively. Quick tip number 1, you are a tank, but you are an unusual tank. Keep that in mind. Like I mentioned earlier, you really can't mitigate any damage for your teammates or even really yourself. Rather, you just soak a lot of damage because you have an incredibly high health pool. You can also heal yourself a lot, but keep in mind you can't mitigate damage, so don't just run up into the thick of things thinking you're invincible. You're going to need to actually play a little bit more cautiously because you have no way of protecting yourself. You can't actually mitigate any damage, you can only react to the damage that you take. Quick tip number 2, don't forget Scrap Gun's alternate fire. I'm guilty of this myself, I always seem to forget to use it, but it can be incredibly powerful if used correctly, and it adds some much needed ranged potential to Roadhog's kit. Quick tip number 3, be mindful of when to use Whole Hog. It can be tempting to use it for an easy kill, but remember how effective Whole Hog is at disrupting enemy players. It's incredibly powerful on contested points and payloads, and the crowd control effect is just as good, almost more so, than the overall damage output of the ultimate ability. Quick tip number 4, Chain Hook is a core part of your playstyle. Use it to pick out weaker targets like healers, and especially players using channeled abilities like Pharah's ultimate. Chain Hook can also be used to hook certain abilities like D.Va's Self-Destruct or Junkrat's Riptire, something to bear in mind. Quick tip number 5, let your healers heal. Now this is something experienced Roadhog players do, but newer Roadhog players may not actually see the synergy there. So say, for example, you're at lower health, you have a Mercy near you, and there's really no threats in the area. Let the Mercy heal you rather than healing yourself with your Take a Breather ability. The reason why you do this is because you have a massive health pool, and all the healing that Mercy is going to do to you is going to get her ultimate ridiculously quickly. When I play as Mercy, I love having a Roadhog on my team because I know I'm always going to have my ultimate ready because I'm always healing Captain 600 hit points over there, right? It's a very good idea, but keep in mind they recently changed how you earn your ultimate with Roadhog, so you do actually earn points towards your ultimate by healing yourself now. So keep in mind, sometimes it's going to be better to let the Mercy heal you up, other times it's going to be better to heal yourself up. It just depends on the situation, but I think we can all agree Mercy having her Resurrect ability is pretty freaking important. Quick tip number 6, practice makes perfect. It will take some time to get used to playing Roadhog well. If you're used to playing a tank character, you're used to having shields and being able to mitigate damage. Roadhog can't quite do that. Newer players tend to play too aggressively when playing Roadhog, thinking that they're invincible because they have 600 health and a big heal ability, and other times newer players end up sitting back too much because they're worried about their lack of mitigation. There's a balance to it all. Roadhog is incredibly good at dealing damage up close, but a big part of his playstyle is knowing when to duck out, heal up, and then return to the fight. I usually mention to know your counters in these videos, but Roadhog doesn't have a hard counter of any description in Overwatch. It's just the very nature of him. There's no one that counters him perfectly. You could argue that a Reaper with his shotguns up close would be a good counter, but name a character where Reaper up close with his shotguns isn't a good counter, or Bastion at a distance in his turret form. These are counters to him, sure, but they're not hard counters. They're not counters that are specifically designed to stop Roadhog and his abilities. He doesn't have any hard counters, which is a big reason why I like to play him. That, ladies and gentlemen, is going to conclude my Roadhog Hero Spotlight and Quick Tips video. He is a very unusual tank who excels at doing damage, disrupting opponents, and healing himself. It's not uncommon whatsoever for you to do gold damage and gold healing as Roadhog if you don't have a support player on your team. One of the best things about playing as Roadhog is the fact that you are a character that does not rely on other players to do well. Take another tank, for example, Reinhardt. He's a good character, sure, but he really benefits from having teammates around him who are taking advantage of his shield. When you're playing as Roadhog, you can be out there on your own and you'll do just fine. You do great damage, you duck out for a little bit, heal yourself back up, and go back into the thick of things. Now, don't get me wrong, you shouldn't be running off playing as if you're Genji or something like that while you're playing as Roadhog. You should still be with your team because you are the tank at the end of the day. But one of my favorite things about playing Roadhog is the fact that I don't need to have good teammates around me. I don't need to have a healer at my back, I can really take care of myself, and as somebody who plays a lot of solo Overwatch, it's fantastic being able to do that while playing as Roadhog. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, he is my second most played character in all of Overwatch, right behind my beloved Junkrat. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to conclude this video. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. If you did, please drop me a rating. Hope you guys all have a wonderful day.